Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and this morning I'm honored to welcome Kelly Breaux, founder of Red Bird Ministries, a beautiful apostolate that offers healing and support to parents who have lost a child. We know October is a month dedicated to the Rosary. It's also a month of pregnancy and infant loss awareness, and I'm really excited to learn more about how Kelly and Red Bird Ministries continue to be this light of hope for those in mourning. Good morning and welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with y'all.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, for those that might not be familiar with the apostolate, what led you and your husband to begin this grief support ministry?
Yeah, so it was through our own suffering that we even had the idea. But in 2005, my husband and I were pregnant for twins, and my placenta ruptured. And so our babies were born emergently, and our son only lived 15 days. They were very tiny. His sister was able to come home from the hospital after 89 days in the NICU, but she contracted the swine flu in 2009, and she passed away 1 month shy of her 4th birthday. And we went on to have two pregnancy losses, first trimester pregnancy losses as well. And I say this with all the love in our heart. Our church was there for us during the week of the funeral, but after there was nothing. And so there was this real thing that we didn't know, like when we needed the church like the most in our family, the church was absent to us. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of forced us to seek help in the secular world. And while they were able to provide us like with the psychological part of it and the emotional, that there was this big disconnect within the spiritual world. And all of my questions really were related to my faith. Mm-hmm. And no one was there to help me to explore that. And so it really led me into isolation, desolation. We were away from the church for about 5 years. And I really needed people who could speak truth over me to help me to explore that.
Yeah, wow, that is just, I think it's like what 1 in 4, like there's so many facts out there, but 1 in 4 experience a miscarriage. It's happened to us, and I agree with you. The church was great initially, but there was nothing afterwards that we really could have had that extra support to get through. It's because it's not easy at all. It's awful. But thankfully we have ministries like yours, Red Bird Ministry, which I'm curious, there has to be a story behind the name Red Bird Ministries. What is that?
Yeah, so my friend that led me back into my faith, her daughter passed away, and they wrote a song, and it was just in remembrance of her, and it was called Red Bird Flies. And it was just the correlation between the cardinal that reminds us of our loved ones that has departed, and my friend, the importance of how she was the first one to walk me back into my faith that had experienced the same loss, and how that's really what Red Bird is trying to do, is to be a light to others who have experienced this loss and walk them back into relationship with God.
Interesting you mentioned red birds, because I live in southern Arizona. Not too many red birds, let's just say. And then, we had my grandmother-in-law passed away and started seeing red birds. I don't know. It's very, that's such a great name. So obviously Red Bird Ministries serves families struggling with the loss of a child, both before and after. What has been most surprising to you in your work in supporting families recovering from miscarriage?
Yes. So in pregnancy loss, one of the things that I've been most surprised, I think, is just the inconsistency with support throughout the church. But also to sometimes how the lay faithful can say things that can be counterproductive to our pro-life stance. Like they use words, I was just, and it just really, what it does is it doesn't uphold the dignity of our babies. If we believe that they have eternal souls, inherent dignity, and that they are loved and they're treasured, and they're part of our family, then our language has to match what we are saying on both sides of the aisle. And I think that, we will have a better grasp on this pro-life movement if we are consistent in our language and also in our support. Because one of the things that we have found is that less than 5% of parishes offer bereavement support. there's not a lot of help within the church to explore these deep theological questions that our families are asking. And they ask big things. So it's like we're not theologians. We've had to learn a lot, and we've had to lean on a lot of experts, but their hearts are just, they're ready to explore their faith. And it's really a missed opportunity.
Yeah, which thankfully you've helped fill that gap.
Yes.
Because like I said, we've experienced that. It's like, where was the church? We needed your help. Why do you think that is? Is it just because we're experiencing just a priest shortages, or what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think what it is just the Western church is not really big on like exploring suffering very openly. They don't like vulnerability. We don't like to talk about hard things in the Western church. But also, too, there's this generational issue that we've very much in the U.S. have experience with just looking at mental health in general with the silent generation. Like they literally had to survive. So there's really no time to talk about emotion. It's just carried on where the baby boomers, they're keeping up with the Joneses. We've just allowed the secular world kind of to infiltrate our spiritual world. And we just need to be able to help our families. Our younger generations want to talk about these issues. Mm-hmm. And so even if we are uncomfortable, we have to lean into that suffering, and that uncomfortable is that Pope Benedict said, I think it was Pope Benedict that said, like, we were not made for comfort. We were made for grace.
It's true.
And it really is. It's like when we open our mouth and we lean into people's suffering, like that's where God is. He can work his miracles when people feel like the church is present to them.
Wow. Yeah. Well said. That makes a lot of sense. As a millennial myself, it's funny because we were always kind of made fun of like, well, we want to talk about our feelings. It's like, well, yeah, we should. And that's why I think there's a lot of dioceses now that are looking into mental health and trying to help bridge that gap with mental health and mental illness, which is good to see. It's a step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. But what kind of resources does Red Bird Ministries offer individuals, parishes, and families all year round?
Yeah, so we support families from pregnancy loss through adult loss, and also families impacted by suicide. So not just child loss in that aspect. We're building out that program. But we have support for families of loss, but also for parishes. And we just came out with a workshop for clergy to help them to understand the dynamics of what families suffer, because there are things that they can do like immediately that can help a family. For instance, like knowing state law, like simple things like we don't know when and our rights in pregnancy loss. So that's why I think a lot of our families don't have closure. So we provide those. We also provide like comfort calls to our families. We have spiritual direction. We have printed resources. And for parishes, we have programming that they can be onboarded, trained, and launch in their parishes.
That's wonderful. And it's one of those things too, like when you're bridging the gap. A lot of parishes don't have anything like this. So that can be very helpful. But speaking of, where can our listeners go to learn more about your work and even get involved?
So it's www.redbird.love, LOVE. And if you're looking specifically for the pregnancy and infant loss remembrance, there's a banner at the top. You click on it. There's a bunch of resources. We have homily talking points, parish aids that they can download for resources, and also what we're offering to our families. And then tomorrow night, which is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day at 7 p.m., we're asking everyone to light a candle in remembrance of their little babies, and to post a picture on Instagram and hashtag pregnancy and infant loss awareness, and then hashtag Red Bird Ministries, just so that people can know like they're not alone, that there's so many people out there that experience this loss. It's just very silent, and we're not talking about it. But also too, they can register for their babies' names to be read. We're doing a virtual mass.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you mentioned it. It's like this awkward conversation. Like we experienced it, and it felt very lonely because like it wasn't something that you easily just bring up in conversation. So it's nice to see that we're trying to break that wall down so that it is something that we can talk about, even though it's challenging and it brings up suffering. But incredible work that you're all doing there.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So remember, redbird.love. and especially look at the information for tomorrow, and we'll certainly have to participate in that. But yes, or you just, redbird.love and click on the top banner for Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month will also help as well. But thank you, Kelly, so much for joining us this morning. Really great.
Thanks, Keith.